Alright, all you glorious gamers out there, welcome to the PlayersToo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media, that is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com, that's PlayerSToo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really helps us out. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, that just helps us out even more. And thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You're an absolute legend. Alright, and on with the show. My name is Mark Anderson. With me, as always, Mr. Lewis Camley. How's it going, Lewis?
Going very well as ever, Mark. How are you getting on yourself?
Not bad. We missed another week. We
did. Yeah, I'd almost forgotten about that. Very disappointing.
You almost forgot. That's terrible, man.
Last week feels like a very long time ago to me. And so, this week it was my fault. Again, some stuff came up in real life that I won't go into, but all good. And we're back, and it's video games time, Mark.
It is indeed. I'm just glad it wasn't my fault this time round, to be honest, Liz, because it's always my fault. But yes, we are a two-man operation here. Sometimes real life gets in the road, ladies and gentlemen. We endeavour to have a podcast out every week, nonetheless. But Lewis, with your busy week, what have you been playing?
Guess what?
Is it Elden Ring?
It's Elden Ring, yeah. Just more Elden Ring. The way the last week or so has been, I've not had tons of time to play. I put a few hours in over the last few nights, in particular over the weekend, but I've not made a ton of progress. I did something that I told myself I wasn't going to do, which was kind of mop up a whole region that I had decided I was basically going to ignore, and then I was like, I'll just go around this wee corner and see what's going on. It's like,
it draws you back in, man. It draws you back in.
As soon as you're like, there's a boss door ahead or whatever, it's very hard to turn your back on any content, you know. So anyway, for anyone keeping track, I'm now in Leyndell, the royal capital, whatever it's called, which I guess is kind of approaching the sort of final, I don't know, third of the game maybe. It feels like I'm sort of reaching that. I mean, one of the finger readers just outside there kind of said to me, like, okay, now you go in here and kill everything that you need to kill and you'll be the Elden Lord. And I was like, okay, this is the first time that the game has really told me what I'm attempting to do. Or just about, at least. So yeah, anyway, still making slow progress. I'm hoping to kind of put a decent little spurt on and make some progress in the next week or two, but I'm nowhere near finishing it the way that you've done. I still can't really fathom how you did that. So
to be honest with you, man, I got quite lucky with my playthrough. I think that just happened to land in a period where I didn't have a massive amount on, so I could dedicate quite a lot of time to it in a row. But yeah, I understand that you have been slightly busier than me, so I've flown through it by comparison.
Well, you even took a week's holiday in the middle of it all, but I've been finding it really difficult to put in any significant time on weeknights. Basically, I maybe play like an hour or two, partly because of that psychological hurdle that you need to get up to play a game like this. But what I've lacked recently in the last week or two is having that weekend time as well, which is kind of key to putting in a lengthy spell for me. So hopefully this weekend coming there'll be a bit more time, so we'll see.
Nice one, man. Nice one.
What about yourself? What have you been playing?
Well, Lewis, I believe the last time we spoke, I had just started playing Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which I have now finished. It wasn't a very long game, to be honest. It wasn't a particularly difficult game. It was quite low intensity, which I was very much looking for after my Elden Ring playthrough. Although I would say it wasn't all that difficult, apart from right at the end, where there were several random, incredibly big difficulty spikes that were pretty insane compared to the rest of the game, to be completely honest. However, Lewis, I have now moved on to playing another game, which is similar in concept to Mario plus Rabbids, but completely different in execution, and that is Gears Tactics.
Oh, nice. Oh, good.
There you go, which was actually a recommendation that Lewis sent me on text. So there we go. I've decided to take your recommendation and start playing Gears Tactics on Games Pass. Now, I have to admit, Gears is a bit hoorah for my taste, if I'm completely honest with you. But despite that, I have to say, like, I'm really enjoying it. Like, I really am. I think that it's maybe a bit less, I don't know, complex feeling even than XCOM. I think that it's obviously more character driven than XCOM is. So it's maybe a bit more comparable to Chimera Squad, which obviously you have played. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good game. It feels like obviously a step up from Mario plus Rabbids, but in the same genre. And I think I'm sort of maybe building myself up to, at some point, take on XCOM again. But we'll see where this road leads me.
I can kind of imagine you might burn yourself out on Gears Tactics before you decide to go back to XCOM, but
I don't think I'll go back to XCOM immediately after this, to be clear.
Do you think we'll get an XCOM 3 at some point? I mean, there's been no rumours of it really for quite a long time.
Well, I don't know. Firaxis are making Midnight Suns, aren't they? So who knows after that? But I think if you've got a Disney contract, you're doing okay. So you'll probably have license to do whatever the hell you want after that. So yeah, maybe you will get an XCOM 3 at some point, but maybe not in the immediate future.
Yeah, certainly not soon, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is time for the news. All right, news item number 1. Nintendo have had a Direct Mini earlier today, Lewis, and this one was called a quote-unquote partners showcase, so it largely focused on third-party games. It was around 25 minutes, but they actually managed to cram quite a lot into that 25 minutes, I would say. So we'll just be going over our highlights from the show here. First off, they started with Monster Hunter Rising Sunbreak expansion, which is coming on June the 30th. If you're into your Monster Hunter, go and check that out. Then after that was one of the quote-unquote surprises of the show, because I think all the surprises in this show had leaked beforehand, Lewis. But Nier Automata, the End of Yorha edition, is coming on October the 6th. This version includes all of the bonus content and some Switch exclusive cosmetics as well. It will be interesting to see how this runs on Switch, I have to say. But yeah, very cool that it's going to be there. So far as I'm aware, it's not a cloud version either. It is just the full game.
Yeah, I don't think it said cloud version. I think that will be the key consideration with this one, really. But, you know, the Switch feels like a good place to play a game like that. If, you know, take it around with you, take it on your kind of journeys, that kind of thing. But yeah, I would be a little bit surprised if it runs well. So let's wait and see.
Well, apparently the PC port had trouble running well, so I don't have much hope for the Switch list.
There you go, yeah.
After that was Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which I think is a genuinely incredible name for a video game and is an awesome looking indie. Lewis disagrees with me on the name front, but he does like the look of it. Is that correct, Lewis?
That is correct. I mean, I don't dislike the name really, but I was just kind of like, feels like one of those names that came before the concept for the game did, you know?
I don't give a shit. It is absolutely fucking incredible. This game has a very, very cool art style about it as well. I can only say that it looks like sort of modern day PS1 graphics, if that makes any sense at all. It's an adventure puzzle game. It is by Simogo, who made Sayonara Wild Hearts, and it is published by Annapurna, who are famous for making all of the indie games, basically. It's coming in 2023. Looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it really does. An interesting, strange-looking little thing. Really keen to see a bit more of this, see what the actual gameplay is like, because it does kind of talk about it being like a mystery and a puzzle to unravel, so could be well up my street. Keen to see more.
Definitely, man. Definitely want to keep an eye on. After that was Super Bomberman R2, which is coming in 2023 and will include a 64-player Battle Royale style mode, apparently.
Of course, why not?
So if you're... Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's not as if they're 5 years too late on that. But if you're into your Bomberman, go and check that out. After that was Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, which brings 10 Mega Man Battle Network games to Switch, which I believe were turn-based games that were originally out on the GBA. If that's something that interests you, go and check it out. Nice to see games like that coming across the Switch as well. After that was Pac-Man World Repacked, which is a remake of the 3D platformer Pac-Man World. Just when I thought The Last of Us Part 1 was the remake no one wanted, Lewis, here we have Pac-Man World. It is coming on August the 26th, and if somehow you were into this back in 1999, more power to you, and now you have a remake. After that, Lewis, was Blanc, which I would argue was another standout from the show. Another incredible looking indie game with a great art style about it. It looked as if it was sort of hand drawn with a ballpoint pen on like white paper. It looked really, really good. You play as a fawn and a wolf cub, and you're kind of solving environmental puzzles. Looks as if you can play it single player and co-op. It does look as if you can actually play it single player properly. Says it will take you on an emotional journey as well. Looks great. Seems right up our street, Lewis, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah, a really gorgeous art style. Kind of keen to see if there's actually any gameplay to it, but it looks, yeah, really beautiful.
After that was Return to Monkey Island. This, of course, we've seen all over the place recently, Liz. But I have to say, the more and more I see this game, the more and more I think it looks pretty good. It's coming out later this year. I'm definitely keeping my eye on it. I know that the game has a huge legacy behind it. So, yeah, I really hope that this one lands, and I hope it is successful. After that was Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. This, of course, is the sequel to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which I have just finished playing. Honestly, it just looks like more of the same, which I'm not sure is a bad thing at all. It seems like the main mechanical difference is that you get to run around freely on your turn within a sort of given radius. I'm not sure how that will affect the gameplay, Lewis, if at all, but I'm interested to find out. It's coming on October the 20th, which Ubisoft leaked beforehand.
Classic Ubisoft, yeah, and they are also going to be doing another showcase on the game tomorrow in our time, but which will actually be yesterday as this podcast comes out, so hopefully we've got a wee bit more details on the game. I thought it looks decent, like you say, more of the same, really. But, you know, I can't imagine what sort of evolution people were really expecting with this, just a bigger, kind of sharper game, maybe with a bit more difficulty to it potentially. But yeah, I'm keen to jump in and play the first game. I've got it. I started it actually at one point, but just never really made any progress with it, so I might try and get through that as well before October so that I can line this one up as well.
My recommendation for this one would be less unnecessary environmental puzzles and more actual battles.
Yeah.
That would be my main criticism of the first game.
Yeah. I mean, I played about an hour and a half and I thought that already, so I'm not reassured by that.
After that, Lewis, was RPG Time, The Legend of Wright. This is another indie game with a hand-drawn aesthetic. This time, it's an RPG that seems to take place inside of a book, like on top of the player's desk, basically. And it looks as if it's just like hand-scribbled notes and you're also using a rubber to like erase stuff and whatever. Actually looks quite interesting, I've got to say. Another one for me to keep my eye on, and that is coming on August the 18th. After that, Lewis, was Sonic Frontiers, which has had a mixed reception, I think it is fair to say, since it was first revealed. Honestly, this just showed a bit more gameplay, a bit more of the sort of open world setting of this game. The thing is that I think that in concept, this is a good idea for Sonic. I think that this is the kind of thing the Sonic franchise should be doing to create a modern Sonic game, capitalising the popularity of the movies and all that are out just now. I think that this is a good idea, basically. However, it does seem as though from some of the early reports from hands-on sessions that people have had over Summer Games Fest and whatever, the execution of that concept may be lacking less.
Yeah, it does seem like the people that have been playing it, it's definitely had a mixed response. I've seen a few people say that they enjoy it, but I think the overwhelming feeling is that it could be a bit of a miss. Although, again, that feels like it's kind of largely comments aimed at the combat rather than the exploration and the movement and that kind of thing. I mean, I would hope that they would just nail that part. I really think that this could and should work well from the perspective of someone who played and loved The Pathless and other games like that have been popular recently. You know, these semi-open world games that are based on movement rather than, you know, puzzle solving or combat and action and that kind of thing. Now, obviously, it being Sonic, they have to put some kind of like combat into it and all that, and that starts to be where it gets complicated. And I don't think what we saw in this trailer, combat-wise, looked particularly good either. I actually also didn't think it looked like it was running very well on Switch, but that's another conversation. Maybe the game just looks like that. Yeah, I don't know. I am not as down on this as I think the internet wants to be, and I can't help but feel like that's partly just people shitting on Sonic, and I'm happy to shit on Sonic most of the time, but I actually don't think that this looks terrible at all, and I'm quite keen to see if it's a great movement-based game and not a great combat game. I could still get on board with that.
Yeah, fair enough, man. I think I basically agree with you. I'm definitely not as down on it as the internet, we will say. Again, I think that this is quite a good concept for Sonic. I think that moving it into this sort of open world and whatever, and yeah, if they can nail the movement like The Pathless or something like Solar Ash or whatever, that would be great. That would be really, really good. And I think that is 90% of the game, or it can be 90% of the game. Do you know what I mean? If they designed it that way, and like you said, the combat can just be sort of secondary to that, and that could be fine. Do you know what I mean? But because it's Sonic and people have certain expectations, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the reaction when it finally comes out, I've got to say. After that, Lewis, was Live Alive, which is an HD 2D remake of a 1994 game of the same name. Honestly, and again, the more and more I see of this game, the more and more I think it looks right up my street, Lewis. It really, really does. I love Square's HD 2D art style. I love the games that have come out in that genre so far. I loved Octopath. I've got Triangle Strategy sitting over there waiting for me to play, Lewis, but I just couldn't handle it after Elden Ring, so I had to play something else. This is coming on July the 22nd, and yeah, man, I'm into it.
Well, good for you, man.
See, to be honest with you, I think that is a reaction of 99% of the people who see that game. After that was Minecraft Legends. This was obviously announced at the Xbox and Bethesda showcase a few weeks ago. I've got to admit, it's doing nothing for me, man. It's really doing nothing for me at all. But I didn't actually realise it was coming to Switch and PlayStation as well. I assumed that this was just going to be a Game Pass game, basically. So good on Xbox for still releasing Minecraft content multi-platform, because it does have a multi-platform player base. So yeah, thumbs up there. After that was Dragon Quest Treasures. This looks like a loot-based spin-off of Dragon Quest XI with a similar art style to Dragon Quest Builders. If you're into your Dragon Quest, that's coming on December the 9th, and you can go and check that out. After that was Portal, the Companion Collection, which is a bundle of Portal 1 and 2 that was originally announced back in February. Lewis, obviously this is one of your absolute faves, but I, sadly, have not played it yet. But as I said back in February when I believe we spoke about this is a very, very good excuse for me to finally get around to playing them. Do you know what I mean? They have shadow dropped, so they are now available on Switch, and I think I will have to look into making a purchase list.
Good. It's about time, man. Yeah, these are utterly fantastic games. Portal 2 especially is just incredible. An incredible puzzle game, an incredible narrative game, atmospheric to the hilt. Yeah, it's unmissable. Portal 1 and 2 are just, I think, kind of, I don't want to say generation-defining games, because obviously that's maybe a bit of a stretch, but they are really massive and exciting and important games from back when they were released, and it's mad to think that it's taken this long to come to Switch. And not only that, it has finally come to Switch after the Steam Deck has come out from Valve, which seems just very odd altogether. But yeah, I hope people pick this up and give it a chance if they haven't yet, including you, Mark, because you will love it. It is fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely know that I'm in the minority here and having not played it, and I don't deny anything that you've said. By all reports of these games, they are sensational, and some would probably classify them as generational defining. Do you know what I mean? They are that good, you know? So, yeah, I'll need to get on it, man. I'll need to get on it. And Lewis, they finished out the show by announcing that Persona 3 Portable, Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 5 Royale are all coming to Switch. This, of course, follows the announcement that they would also be coming to Xbox, PC, and to PlayStation as well for Persona 4 Golden and Persona 3 Portable. However, I do feel as though this is very much overdue for the Switch, Lewis. Remember when Persona 5 first came out and was sort of blown up in the West? It was just the first game to really, really blow up in a big, big way. And every direct after that felt like the rumours were always, Persona 5 is going to be on the Switch, particularly after Joker turned up in Smash Brothers as well. And now it finally is. Now it's finally coming on October the 21st. Very glad to see these games there. I've not played Persona 4 Golden or Persona 3 Portable. I very much want to. But Persona 5 is sensational, and that is the one that's coming out on October the 21st. The other two are coming out next year at some point. But great to see that they're making their way to consoles. Fantastic. Fantastic. Because these games were very difficult to play for a long period of time.
Yeah, this is a great get for the Persona fans out there that have been absolutely crying for this for a long time, particularly Persona 5, like you say, after that kind of explosion. But those two older games, both on Switch and everywhere else that they're appearing now, that's something that people have really wanted, and it's only going to help the Persona series, right? Persona 6 is going to benefit from all of this, so it's kind of mad that they hadn't done it up till now. Wonder if that's a money thing or an agreements thing or something like that. I guess it must be, but great that people are going to get their hands on it now. Yeah,
definitely, man. I think it's fantastic that they're finally available, particularly Persona 4 and Persona 3, like just more widely available, more people can get their hands on it, and as you said, that can only help the series. And Persona 5, the only one that I've played, was absolutely stellar, so I very much want to play the other two. Overall, Lewis, what are your thoughts on the Direct? We were talking a little bit before the podcast and off air. I think that we sort of both agreed that actually when you look down the list of games that were spoken about here, there's a lot of decent games on this show. It was a pretty decent showcase overall, I would say. However, it did lack one real standout, you know? Do you still feel that way, basically?
Yeah, more or less. I wasn't really expecting anything, to be honest.
I wasn't expecting anything either, really, but I don't know, I just wanted one big thing. You know what I mean? I wanted that crescendo that we just sort of didn't get.
I mean, I guess like Persona would have been that if it hadn't kind of been semi-leaked and also just a sort of natural expectation after the Xbox announcement.
Yeah,
you know what
definitely.
I mean? So
definitely.
Similarly, things like Nier, I think, is quite an exciting thing to be coming to Switch, even though there will be questions about its suitability. You know, we kind of heard that in the last few days that was going to happen. Most of the bigger surprises had been kind of leaked already. The Mario plus Rabbids date had been leaked, and they didn't really focus too hard on that, given that, I suppose, because this other Ubisoft thing is coming.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, overall, like, I thought it would have been way worse. I was expecting a lot of like sort of shovelware indie stuff, like nothing of particular note, and I was a little surprised that we didn't. Not a little surprised, though. I guess I hoped that we would see Silksong, which obviously we're just going to hope to see every time now that we've been given a little taste. And I did think we might get Cuphead, just because it's out basically in the next couple of days, and I'm not certain that it's been confirmed on all the platforms that the original game has been released at launch. I could be totally off grid with that, but it seemed like a natural place to advertise that if it is on Switch at launch in the next couple of days. So, but yeah, overall, thought it was fine, basically.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the Cuphead DLC is
I'm assuming
on
it
all
is.
the platforms it should be on, we will say.
Given that we both played it on Switch, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I basically agree. I think that the problem is that we knew about all of this. Apart from Blanc, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, and RPG Time, all of which were indies. Like, I think that we knew about all of these games, you know what I mean? And even the ones that were coming across, like Nier and the Persona games, like they're old games, do you know what I mean? There was no big new announcement, do you know what I mean? That's basically what I'm trying to say, and that I feel is what was missing from the showcase. However, that being said, yeah, basically I agree. It was totally fine. I suppose the question is, do you think that the direct style showcase is sort of losing its luster a little bit? Because I think that when Nintendo were first doing this and they were hitting out with banger after banger, like everyone thought this was the greatest thing in the world, and everyone copied them after that as well. But now it feels as though they're really struggling to maintain that, and they're just putting out too many directs, it feels like. Do you know what I mean? And they're putting out directs when they don't necessarily have something to really shout about, and it's probably a contractual obligation to speak about these games rather than at a time where they actually want to announce something, you know?
Yeah, I think that's bang on, basically. You're right to say that they were sort of copied, and if that hadn't happened, and if we hadn't had COVID, and maybe the bigger, or the other major publishers would still be kind of relying on one big in-person event a year, then we might still be looking at these quite differently, but I think they need to condense them all. I think partner showcases, the indie directs, and the kind of main overall slightly Nintendo-focused directs should all be done together in one package and kind of done like quarterly or 3, 4, 5 times a year or whatever makes sense to them. But yeah, separating them out like this, I mean, it means certain games get a wee bit more time than they would on a bigger showcase, but also loads of stuff that you're just like, well, oh, yeah, of course these games are coming here, this isn't particularly exciting, or it's been announced already or whatever. So I think a wee bit of refinement of this strategy would be good from Nintendo.
Yeah, definitely. Just feel as though the shine's been taken off it just a little bit in recent years, do you know what I mean? But ultimately, it's always good to hear about game announcements and new games and all that, Liz. Alright, news item number 2. We got a bit of Steam Deck news this week as well, Lewis. Firstly, a modder called, and you will have to forgive me because this potentially isn't even a word, the Smeckelray, Lewis?
Let's say that. It doesn't look like a real word to me.
Let's say that. Moving swiftly on. Anyway, he has modded his Steam Deck to take a larger 22x42 M.2 drive, expanding the storage. However, a Valve designer, Lawrence Yang, has jumped on this to discourage people from modding the Steam Deck in this particular way, saying that this mod may appear to work but will significantly shorten the life of your deck. His reasoning being that the bigger drive will draw more power than the Steam Deck is designed to take, and the issue is exacerbated as the mod involves moving thermal pads inside the Steam Deck itself. So, compounding problems there, I will say. Valve have actually been very open about modifications to the Steam Deck. They'd partnered with a third-party supplier, iFixit, in order to provide replacement and additional parts for the Steam Deck. They'd also released CAD files so that players could 3D print their own cases. Take note, PlayStation. However, I do think that this particular step might be a bit too far unless you want your Steam Deck to overheat and potentially explode. Secondly, Valve have confirmed this week that they are upping the production of the Steam Deck and will apparently be shipping more than double the number of Steam Decks every week, which is fantastic news, particularly because they have also announced that they will start sending out Q3 reservation emails this week, which is particularly exciting for me because that is the window in which I am supposed to be getting one, Lewis. But this is a moot point for Lewis Camley because he fucking very quietly and quite sneakily has managed to secure himself a Steam Deck, which I'm very jealous about, and I bet I'm not coming across at all better in this particular section. How have you been enjoying your Steam Deck list?
You sound very gracious as ever, Mark. Yeah, I have a Steam Deck. I'm holding it up to the camera.
Oh, look at him holding up. You
can look at
bastard.
its glory here, Mark.
God, that is big. It really is big.
That's it, but it's almost as wide as my laptop screen. My laptop screen's like pretty decent size. Yeah, where to begin? I got this maybe a week or so ago after quite a lot of hassle with the Steam store.
Well, that was your own fault, to be fair.
Well, no, it wasn't exactly my own fault. I tried to pay for it, and
it was his own fault, ladies and
gentlemen.
No.
I'm not having that. The payments wouldn't go through. I had money on all the accounts. It was nothing to do with me. There was just, I think I tried to buy it while I was on a train, and the part just hung and nothing ever worked again. Anyway,
why would you try and buy it on a train?
Because I fucking left it to the last minute, didn't I? And I was getting the train to work.
Which was his fault, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, I'll accept blame for that part. Anyway, the Steam help guys really nicely put it back into my basket, even though it had expired, which is great. And I purchased it. And yeah, I've not played much on it yet. What I've done so far, basically, Mark, was I jumped in and out of some of the Steam Next Fest demos. I played Midnight Fight Express, that demo for a game that we saw a couple of weeks ago, so sort of brawler thing. Played a bit of that, played one or two other things very briefly. It does come not packed in with, but kind of recommends that you download a thing called Aperture Desk Job, which is a new game from Valve, I guess set in the Portal universe. I haven't actually touched it yet, I've installed it, but so there's that. I've not really heard anything about that, which isn't a great sign. It's probably not really a game anyway. And beyond that,
it'll be like Astrobot or something.
Exactly,
right, for the PS5,
probably less so than that even.
Tech demo more than anything.
But what I have done, the bulk of my time with it really was trying to install the itch.io launcher and then the two itch games that we're playing as our PlayAlong games just now, Sagebrush and The White Door, which I've finally got running. It took a lot of faff. It was described to be a much easier process than it turned out to be, but I think that there was things within that if I just knew a bit more, like if I was doing this again now, I would know how to do it and it wouldn't take anywhere near as much time as it did. Much simpler, I have installed essentially the Epic Games launcher as well, which means I have access to what is a much more, for me, sizable Epic Games library because they give so much away for free, much bigger than my Steam library is at the moment. So I've got that, and this won't make any sense until you've got your hands on it, but you can flip between desktop mode and the kind of gaming OS essentially, and you can do so in a way that pulls those launchers through to that gaming OS so that they just look like normal games that you launch on the kind of core Steam Deck experience, but you can go into these other launchers there, which is really neat. I thought I was maybe going to have to play everything in desktop mode, which is literally a Linux desktop. You can do normal desktop stuff on it, which is quite strange. Very quickly, form factor and that kind of thing. Give me if you've got any questions while I'm holding it here, Mark.
Well, I suppose the main question is, like, how does it play? How does it feel when you're playing it?
I think it feels really nice, actually. It's nowhere near as heavy as I was worried it was going to be. It sort of sits quite nicely in the hand. The buttons, your face buttons up on the right-hand side are nice, and you might be able to hear me clicking here. They're kind of nice and
very clicky, not spongy.
Yeah, they're not too bad. The sticks are good. The revelation to me is the little trackpads. They're funny. They take a wee
I was going
bit
to ask
of getting
about the
used
little
to.
trackpads.
But they're nice. They feel good. They're really responsive. An odd thing that it'll do when you're trying to type is that it'll pull an on-screen keyboard up, right? But your right thumb trackpad will only go up till halfway down the screen, and your left thumb pad will only go up to the other half of the screen. So you're almost like dual wielding. It's really hard to explain that, and it sounds like it might be complicated and horrible, but I've quite enjoyed using it so far. I haven't used it in any kind of gaming sense yet, and actually the White Door, which I've been playing most so far, the controls don't work on it, which it might be because it's itch and all that, but it's basically touchscreen. So I've been using the touchscreen element as well, which is good. It's got the little back triggers as well, which I've not programmed for anything yet, but sure. I'm worried that I'm going to constantly press them because they seem to be exactly where the bulk of my fingers are, but again...
Well, that's where they're supposed to be. They'd be pretty bad buttons if they weren't where your fingers were.
Well, I think that though, if I'm playing a game that requires my fingers on the triggers and the sticks, then I'm not too concerned about it. But if I'm playing something that's quite basic and I maybe only need left thumb on the left stick and right thumb on the face buttons, basically my entire hand is on those buttons. I guess I just won't program them for a lot of games anyway. But so that's my overall thinking on the playing of it. It's real smooth. The OS, the kind of Steam Deck OS stuff is really nice. It does front load all of your Steam Deck verified games and kind of automatically filters them on the Steam store. So I have my library of about, 20 to 30 games. About half of them are quote-unquote Steam Deck verified. That doesn't mean that the rest of them don't run totally fine. They've just not kind of gone through that process yet. And similarly, that means that there's games on the store that you won't be 100% certain how well they play. But, of course, there is also the internet, and you can just go and Google and a lot. Like I checked out quite a small game called Norco that I'm really keen to play, which is sort of a bit like Kentucky Route Zero. It's not been verified yet, but various people online forums and stuff were already saying, yep, it runs fine. Like there might be one janky bit of control or whatever, but it's all kind of fine. So that's my impression so far. I've still got miles and miles to go with this, even just to kind of get my initial feelings, because again, all my gaming time's going on Elden Ring, so I haven't really wanted to start anything too major on it yet, but we're on the journey, and whenever I see you in person next, Mark, I'll let you have a little touch of it.
Yes, please.
Oh, and the case it comes with is also very nice. Like, it's a good little package from Valve as well, I would say.
Cool. Nice one, man. Nice one. Well, I'm very glad that you've got your Steam Deck. I hope that you get a chance to play it relatively soon after you've beat Elden Ring. So
next Christmas.
Yeah. No, that's great, man. It sounds really cool. I am genuinely quite jealous, so I very much hope that mine does come relatively soon, and with any luck, I'll be on the first batch of emails that will be getting sent out on the 30th or whatever it was. Alright, let's news item number 3. We have also got some news from FromSoftware, as Miyazaki has given an interview to Japanese gaming site 4Games. A few interesting pieces of information have come out of this. Firstly, when referencing a previous interview in 2018, they were basically talking about how Miyazaki had said that he was working on 3.5 games, and the half game was that VR game that they made, the name of which escapes me right now.
Deracine.
There you go. And apparently we've now seen all of these games bar one, including Elden Ring, of course. So he was asked, are we still going to see that one? Is that still in development? Is it still coming? To which Miyazaki said, yes, it is. We are in the final stages of development. So that's quite exciting, because we might not have to wait that long to see the next FromSoftware game. It is rumoured extensively that this next game will be Armored Core 6, and for good reason. There is a lot of substantial evidence pointing towards it being Armored Core 6. To be honest with you, it seems as though it's nearly a dead cert that it will be Armored Core 6. And apparently there is also evidence pointing to the fact that has been in development since 2016. So that would also make a lot of sense to be coming out relatively soon if that were true, because that would be 6 years, which is a long time. He also said that they are working on multiple games right now, like as well as the Armored Core 6 game, which I'm assuming that it is, saying that at least some of them will be directed by people other than himself. Miyazaki said this regarding FromSoftware and their general expansion of late, and his position sort of trying to juggle being the president and the director.
As I have said in several interviews, the fact that we've been able to create a title of the scale of Elden Ring now is largely due to the expansion of staff within the company, but I think that from now on we will be entrusting more projects to them. In fact, we're working on several titles directed by people other than myself. I think we'll be able to show you a different colour of direction from FromSoftware, so please look forward to it. I am essentially a director, so when I come into contact with a title under development, I think about it a lot and want to say something about it. But in that case, I'm not the director, I'm not the subject of the vision, and I can't take responsibility until the very end, so I feel that any unnecessary intervention would have a lot of negative effects on the game and the project. As director, I'm already working on the next title. In the medium to long term, I'd like to work on a more abstract fantasy than the past titles.
So I think this is pretty exciting stuff, to be honest with you. It seems as though we might not have to wait long for the next FromSoftware game. It seems as though Miyazaki's next game might be something weird, which would be awesome. And it seems as though he might be letting someone else take the reins of director in a FromSoftware game, which is really, really cool. Lewis, what stands out to you here?
What stands out to me is a more abstract fantasy, to be honest. Yeah. More abstract than these games. Come on. They don't make any sense. No, I think this is cool. Really what stands out to me here actually is a part of that statement where he kind of talks about how to be a good boss, which is to trust the people that you have employed and let them get on with things and understand that your intervention may not be the most helpful thing all the time, and that you can take responsibility at the end and kind of help steer that ship into dock, but maybe you shouldn't be like at the helm the whole time. This is a big move from Software if they're moving towards a more kind of dissociated development structure with more people in charge and maybe more teams at work on more things at once. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing that's in development is Armored Core. I also wouldn't be surprised if nearing the end of completion or whatever is a bit of a mistranslation and ends up being a bit further out than we're imagining, because there tends to be sort of 2 or 3 years between most From games or major From games. So I'd be surprised if we get, something that's not Elden Ring connected in the next 6 months to a year. That would seem pretty unlikely to me, but who knows. I could see it being a smaller title like that Deracine thing was, just maybe not VR, or maybe it will be VR. But this is all exciting stuff. I just hope that I've finished Elden Ring before they release another fucking game, Mark. That's the real thing.
Well, this is sort of the thing. I have had no connection whatsoever to the Armored Core series. I have no interest in it whatsoever. And to be honest with you, going back and looking at the Metacritic scores for the past, I think 3 or 4 games, not super great. In fact, actively bad, I would say, for some of them. Granted, he wasn't attached to all of them. But yeah, I don't know. The series isn't doing a hell of a lot for me. Don't get me wrong, Miyazaki's track record with the Soul stuff is incredible, so I'll be interested in whatever it is he makes next. But yeah, I'm not really sure how interested I will be in an Armored Core 6, if I'm totally honest, Liz. Alright, finishing off as we always do with a couple of shout-outs. Shout-out number 1, Fire Emblem Warriors has come out this week, currently sitting with an okay score of 74 on Metacritic. The game does seem to be quite a nice marriage of the sort of Musou genre and Fire Emblem, and ultimately I think if you like Musou games, you'll probably like this as well. It seems to be a perfectly good game in that genre, basically. However, if you were into Fire Emblem for the sort of RPG elements and the tactical battle elements of the game, this might not be for you, because that's why I was into Fire Emblem, and this is doing very little for me, I have to admit. Shout out number 2, F1 2022 has also come out this week, which is currently sitting with an 82 on PC and PS5 and an 81 on Series X. It does seem as though the actual racing in this game is pretty good. After all, it's been developed by Codemasters. However, like all EA sports games, it seems to lack innovation or change or anything particularly good or interesting in the story mode, which is holding the game back, which I think is probably pretty disappointing for fans and seems to be a recurring theme, Lewis, in EA sports games particularly.
Yeah, it seems a lot like more of the same, really, which is a bit of a shame because Codemasters had delivered a few really great installments in the series over the last few years, some that reviewed really, really well. But, this has got the EA sort of slick on it now, where everything's going to be pretty much the same going forward, which is a wee bit of a letdown, but there you go.
Absolutely. Alright, let's shout out number 3. The revamped PS Plus is now available in the UK, which is fantastic. It gives you access to well over 700 games, which I believe is approaching 60% larger than the Games Pass library, which is kind of insane, to be honest with you. However, as with all PlayStation announcements these days, it seems, Lewis, there is also bad news for the European subscribers of this. It seems as though a lot of the European PS1 games are actually the PAL version, which therefore runs at 50 Hz, which in this day and age is just absolutely fucking ridiculous. Specifically because when the service launched in North America, all the games were NTSC and 60Hz, so why not just give everyone access to that library? It literally seems as if it would be more work to give Europeans access to worse games. Do you know what I mean? Why wouldn't they just have one library and just give everyone access to that library? It is worth pointing out that PlayStation Europe have said that they are planning to roll out NTSC options, but we really shouldn't have to wait for this, man. That's just fucking dumb. Anyway, that is only something you have to worry about at the premium tier, and frankly, it's another reason not to get the premium tier. Unless you're looking to play a lot of PS1, 2 and 3 games, I would honestly just recommend getting the extra tier. That is the tier I'm going to end up on, I'm almost convinced of. And even if you did want to play some of those games, a couple of those games a year, I would literally just go up to that tier, that premium tier, for a month, play that game, and then come back down in the extra tier. For me, there's just really no reason to be on that premium tier at all. However, that being said, I do think that the extra tier, which is basically the Game Pass tier, is very good. It's very good value for money. Thumbs up to that. Lewis, your thoughts?
Yeah, I basically agree with that. I'll be on the extra tier, and like you say, I would only really be looking at the premium tier when there's like specific games I want to play and will kind of jump in and out for a month. Maybe ICO is the one that sticks most readily in my head. It's something that I'm really keen to do, but yeah, I've not even upgraded yet, to be honest. Again, I'm just going to wait until I'm finished with Elden Ring to actually have the time to play anything in that library. But it's a strong library PlayStation have put out there. Keen to see, or keen to dig into it, I should say. But I guess the only kind of criticism I've seen otherwise is that it's a bit of a mess on the actual PlayStation Store side. I haven't gone to look at it yet, but I think kind of finding stuff could be a bit of a hassle. 700 games, it's always going to be quite hard to organise that, I would suggest. So this is cool. Glad it's here at last. Don't know why we were the last ones. Don't know why we're not getting the NTSC versions, as you say. But, that's just the way it goes, I guess.
Yeah, that's just stupid. I've not dived into it either, to be honest with you. I've not been on my PlayStation 5. I finished Elden Ring, turned that off, turned my Switch on, played Mario plus Rabbids, then turned the Xbox on and played Gears Tactics. So I've not been on the PlayStation in a while. But yeah, I will eventually be upgrading to the extras tier. And yeah, hopefully the UI is not too bad. All right, let's shout out number 4. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least mention the US Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade after nearly 50 years. Roe v. Wade was what was protecting the abortion rights of people in the US, which are now gone, with 13 states already passing trigger bans on abortions, and at least another 13 states are expected to join them with either outright bans or severe restrictions on abortions. Oh man, it's bad. My heart really goes out to anyone in the US affected by this decision. The US seems to be heading backwards at an alarming rate, Lewis. And as the US sets a huge precedent for the rest of the Western world, it is a scary thing to see. But, I mean, for us, it's minimal compared to the people who this is actually directly affecting. However, bringing this back around to video games, the outpouring of support from devs and publishers alike has been nearly universally them saying that they support reproductive freedom, they support bodily autonomy, they support access to safe healthcare, and that these are human rights. Obviously they are. Some like Bungie and Microsoft have even said that they would be adding travel expenses for safe legal abortions to their medical plans, which is a fantastic response. I have to say that the video games industry response to this has been very, very good to see in the wake of something which I perceive and a lot of people perceive to be something truly awful. But yeah, man, scary stuff. Scary stuff.
Yeah, very scary stuff, horrible stuff. Yeah, another dark day in the sort of modern history of the United States. Yeah, I think to keep it focused on the kind of video game side of this, I was really encouraged to see so many of Sony's studios in particular come out very quickly and make statements, because there had been that whole issue with Jim Ryan kind of...
Yes, being an absolute fucking twat. Yes,
both sidesing it a couple of weeks ago when this was all rumoured to be coming, and, Bungie, to their credit, were all over it at the time and made some really powerful statements, and they've been joined by their kind of PlayStation stablemates now, so that's all really good. But yeah, just do anything that you can to support people that are going to be badly in need now. There was a lot of comments on it at Glastonbury over the last weekend, which was really powerful to see as well. The video game industry has to play its part the same way as the music industry and the film industry and all these things to kind of keep the message out there and keep people talking. So, people might be saying keep this out of gaming, keep politics out of gaming, but people make games, and therefore people's human rights are fundamentally entwined with games and how games are made, and that's, there's no escaping that at all.
Certainly not. But Lewis, I refuse to end on downers these days, and we have actually, today I believe, got a bit of particularly cool news, because the first ever Scottish Games Week has been confirmed for October the 24th to the 28th, and has actually even been supported by the Scottish Government, which is very cool indeed.
It is, yeah. So this has been organised by the Scottish Games Network. It's a 5-day event looking at the games industry and its impact in Scotland and beyond. Somehow, if you don't know, because we've mentioned it plenty of times, the Scottish games industry's got a really kind of strong and important history. Grand Theft Auto came from here originally. I think console editions of Minecraft were from here. So this is just a kind of a wee festival celebrating that history. It's taking place all across Scotland, events in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Dundee, and then everywhere from the Highlands and Islands to the borders, which is great, really inclusive. There'll be all sorts of things. You can go and check out what they're doing, but it's all hybrid, so you can either attend in person or you'll be able to watch online. So even if you're not in Scotland or from Scotland, you can pay attention to that. But yeah, we just wanted to flag this one up because it's a really cool thing. If anyone from the Scottish Games Network is a listener, give us a shout. We'd be keen to hear a bit more about all this and see what you're doing, but just a nice thing to kind of mention, given that we are a Scottish Games thing.
Yeah, we are a Scottish Games thing, and so are you. So no, this is really cool, man. I think it is really cool. I would say like it's more industry focused, and as you said, like a celebration rather than like a showcase of games or anything like that.
Yeah, although they are doing the first ever Scottish Games Awards, which is really cool.
Yes, they are, which is very, very cool indeed. All very cool. I like that a lot. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for a beer, and then we'll be back for Topic of the Week. And we are back for Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week this week is a look ahead to the rest of 2022, Lewis.
It is indeed, Mark. Yeah, so we are right at the end of June. We're at basically the halfway point of the year, and typically speaking, when we get to this kind of point here at PlayersToo, we do a bit of a look back at the year that's been and a look ahead to what's still to come for the rest of the year. But I guess normally we might ask each other what our game of the year so far has been, but it's pretty much a given at the moment, I think, for both of us.
Yeah,
certainly
it's pretty much Elden Ring, yeah.
Basically only played one game for most of this year. Yeah, so we're just going to focus a wee bit on the games that are still to come for the rest of 2022. It's been a strange year. There's been a lot of delays. Some of the biggest games that we were expecting in the back half of 2022 have moved to 2023 or beyond. And so I guess we're going to kind of go through month by month, look at some of the major games or the games that we're particularly interested in that are scheduled to release, and a few that are rumoured to release this year, I guess, that don't have dates yet. And just going to talk through those. And then I guess we'll reflect a wee bit at the end about if we're excited or not, or what we are excited about, and what kind of gaming year this has been in the grand pantheon of gaming years, because there's been some particularly good ones recently. So and let's see how 2022 stacks up when we get it all said and done, Mark. Let's start off in July, and I guess just as a very special mention, before July, on the 30th of June is the release of the Cuphead DLC, which will be the day this podcast comes out. So that's definitely worth a mention, because it hasn't happened yet, so it still fits in with this theme. But yeah, games in July, Mark, there's kind of two standouts to me, at least. There's one or two others. The big one I think is going to be Stray, right? Coming out on I think the 19th of July, and coming direct to PlayStation Plus, which is great. You excited for this one?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think that looked absolutely fantastic. I must admit, I had a slight trepidation around Stray, despite the fact that I thought it was quite a cool concept for a game. But I was quite unsure about how any gameplay as a cat would work. But then we saw the gameplay pretty recently in whatever it was, a PlayStation State of Play or whatever, and it looked absolutely fantastic. And from then on, I've been fully on board for it. So yes, I'm very excited to play as that wee cat with a backpack. Yes.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be my sort of palate cleanser after Elden Ring as well. Just a nice little cat game. I'm up for that.
Nice one. How many days is that?
It's about 3 weeks
21
away,
days.
Yeah.
21 days.
If I do an hour a day, maybe we'll get there. Yeah. The other big July release, I suppose, is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Not one that I am across whatsoever, Mark, but a big deal.
A big deal, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it'll have its fans. Well, it definitely has its fans out there without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, I mean, I think that this probably, in reality, is the biggest game coming out in July, despite the fact that me and you are probably more excited for Stray than this game, to be honest.
Not probably.
Okay, well, definitely more excited about Stray. But yeah, I mean, this is a big deal for a lot of people. New Xenoblade game, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the Switch as well, was like a really big deal and like sold really well. I think was one of the best selling in the series or whatever. No reason to think that this wouldn't be the same. So yeah, I'm sure that it will sell very, very well when it comes out, Liz.
Yeah. Otherwise, like, not a massively stacked July. The other one for me is As Dusk Falls, which was on the Xbox Showcase last month.
Sure.
Sort of interesting art style, story-driven game. Looks a bit like a kind of picture book, like not a kid's picture book, but a sort of graphic novel, I suppose, but unfolding in front of you. I'm skeptical. I didn't love the art style. I'm not sure if you did or not, but that's kind of one of the other big ones. I think
I was a bit more positive on the art style than you were, but yeah, definitely a striking art style, I think we can safely say, yeah. I must admit, the other one for me is Live Alive, which we just spoke about, which is the HD 2D game coming from Square, but I have to play their previous HD 2D game first, so God knows when I'll get around to that. But yeah, that is the one where it stands out to me.
A glutton for punishment. Quick shout outs as well to Monument Valley, which come into PC, and the Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series, those remakes of the old Klonoa games, which is just a fun little one for old guys like us who were kids when these games came out. Moving on to August, Mark, there's again only a handful of games of any kind of like significant note, I would say. Quick shout out, I suppose, to Marvel Spider-Man Remastered coming to PC. That's just another big step in Sony's rollout to PC strategy, but I don't think we need to waste too many words on it here.
It's really good. That's
yeah, it is really good. There's not two ways about it.
Super good.
Get an enormous monitor and play the hell out of that.
Oh my god, imagine that on one of those super wide monitors. That'd be fucking awesome.
Nice stuff. The only major game I would say that's coming out is Saints Row, I suppose. I'm not massively excited about that. I don't think you are either. I wasn't very impressed by that last wee bit that we saw, again, possibly during the Xbox showcase. Although they did have that cool character creator demo-y thing, which was a nice touch.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really cool. I hope people are taking advantage of that. I thought that was a genuinely cool piece of marketing. Yeah, but I think that Saints Row probably is the big game from August here. Well, apart from Madden NFL 23 list.
Yeah, but we're the wrong side of the pond.
It's more Madden. It's more
Madden. Real football in these parts. September, we start to see a bit of a ramping up of what the hell's going on here, Mark. There's a few big games here. One to get out of the way quickly, Lord of the Rings Gollum. You got any interest in this?
Precisely zero-less. Absolutely none whatsoever.
Yeah, it's not doing much for me either, that, to be honest. As a formerly very big Lord of the Rings fan, so I usually pay attention to what they're doing gaming-wise, but what we've seen of it, I just think looks really not interesting and not particularly unique or new or exciting at all. So
nope,
not for me.
I would agree with all those words, Liz, yes.
The big one, though, on September 2nd is The Last of Us Part 1, the remake. The badly needed remake of The Last of Us 1, as it was formerly known as. Yeah, we're getting that. I mean, we've talked this one to death already, I suppose, but it's going to be good, right? There's no two ways about it. It's going to be one of the best games of the year.
To be clear, it is a fucking sensational video game. However, the debate is whether or not we needed this remake or not. And I mean, I think there was a genuine justification for it. You seem to think less so. But when this releases, it will be sensational because it is a fucking incredible video game.
Aye, it certainly is. And no, it will be great. I'm looking forward to it. I just find it all a bit daft, to be honest. A couple of other big releases, I'll blaze through three really quickly and then we can finish on a Nintendo game, but Grounded is due to finally get its proper release, which is, great. It's been in early access for so long. Tunic is coming to PlayStation, PS4 and PS5, which I'll probably still play it on Game Pass before that if I get around to it, but that's fantastic. I guess alongside Death's Door, one of the kind of most interesting looking indies from the last couple of years, which I'm really keen to get involved with, and Metal Hellslinger, which I wondered if you're going to play that or not. It's Doom meets metal music, which I think sort of 16-year-old Mark might have been just totally all over this. I'm
not sure any period Mark would have been all over this if I'm totally honest, but it's an interesting concept. As I said when we were talking about it during I think it was Summer Games Fest or whenever it popped up. I worry that this is a game that sounds better in concept than it is fun to play in practice. But I'm interested to see what it is. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, a lot of people played the Steam demo a couple of weeks ago and seemed to love it. It's a rhythm game meets Doom meets metal music. I think if you those boxes do anything for you, then you're gonna probably love it. But I'm not touching it. No way. I'm not interested in any of those things really.
Yeah, you need to play Doom first. Jesus.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. But yeah, speaking of Doom, the other big game is Splatoon 3, very similar to Doom. Splatoon 3 is coming out on September 9th. This is Nintendo's probably biggest release of the latter part of the year, I would say, unless I'm forgetting anything.
Pokemon.
Well, yeah, there's always Pokemon. Can't move for fucking Pokemon these days. No, but I still feel like we don't know tons, but those early trailers we got from Splatoon were really kind of interesting, the atmosphere that they were going for. I doubt I'll ever play it because the whole vibe doesn't massively appeal to me, but I think this is going to be a big hit for fans of the series so far and Nintendo fans generally.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I think this will sell like hotcakes. I thought that what we've seen from it looks good. In a lot of ways, it looks like more of the same, but they're sort of, pushing the boat out a little bit more, it feels like. I think that this will sell very well, and I think it will be a huge hit, to be honest.
So into October, Mark. October
Mighty October.
Yeah, comparatively to all the months around it, October is absolutely stacked this year. You listeners can be the judge of whether it's actually stacked in the grand scheme of things, but there's some great games coming here. I'll rattle through a couple quickly before we can hone in on some of the bigger ones. So the Nier Automata Switch edition is coming right at the start of the month. No Man's Sky is coming to Switch as well, which is quite exciting for people that are looking to play that. Persona 5 Royale is coming to all the platforms in the middle of the month on the 21st. But let's look at a couple of others in a wee bit more depth. We've got Marvel's Midnight Suns coming on October 7th. Me and you've had quite a lot of chat about this game, more than it probably merits up to this point, but I think that's because we're both fans of XCOM and that style of game, and we've just kind of, I don't know, been slight disagreements about how excited we are about this one. You are less so than I am, but I am really looking forward to this at the moment, I've got to say.
Cool, man. I'm glad for you. It's doing very little for me right now, I have to admit.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it, right? And maybe we can have a discussion when you start to play it, or when it finally comes out and we get some reviews in. But for me, the combat is doing very, very little for me, to be honest with you. I thought that this would translate to a better game than what it looks like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I've watched the gameplay stuff now as well that you had pointed out to me before, and I was still really impressed by it by the end. So I guess it comes down to what it is that you're looking for, maybe, or what you're kind of expecting from it. But definitely, like, I'm always keeping a skeptical eye on Marvel and Disney and all that stuff, because I do think they have the capability of just phoning a lot of stuff in and getting an easy pass because they've got the Marvel glitz all over it. So I'm not for a second saying that it's a done deal at the moment, but I'm kind of interested and excited for it. Another one, Mark, that I would say is not a done deal at this point in time is Forspoken, which comes out just a few days later on October 11th.
Yes. Well, I think that I am probably the one that is more up on that than you, to be honest. I am cautiously optimistic that will be a good game, is what I will say. However, I don't think that is necessarily a done deal either, no. There's reason to be skeptical about that game from what we've seen from it. I do think that the combat and the movement and stuff in it looks great. Like, I really think that looks great, because a lot of the story and the character models really didn't look great. Just not beating about the bush at all, to be honest with you. But I think that the combat looks good, and if that is as good as it looks, then I'm excited for it. Do you know what I mean? Because I did think it looked great.
Yeah, I still think we've got more to see from this game. I'm not massively hot on it just now, but I could definitely be one round. This isn't one that I've been put off by any stretch, but just, I don't know, little inklings of stuff. Yeah,
I would
quite
say that
right
I would agree. I can quite easily be one round, and I can equally easily be put off. Let's just say that.
Yeah, if PlayStation were smart, they would get this onto PlayStation Plus and let people play it that way. But we'll see. Yeah. A couple of others maybe that we should do quite quickly. A Plague Tale Requiem's coming out on the 18th of October. We've both spoken about that fairly recently. It's been something that we're actually probably more keen to go back and play the first one, really, but then so that allows us to play this one. You in agreement with that?
Yeah, definitely. I've got it downloaded on my PS5. The first game and I've had it downloaded on my PS5 for absolutely ages, and I've just not actually got around to playing it.
Much the same here. But yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on there. We've got Scorn coming on the 21st, which is that super icky looking sort of H.R. Geiger style sort of shooter thing.
That looks great.
Again, we don't know tons of details, but that looks fantastic. That was one of the absolute
that looks great. That looks really, really
from the
good.
original Xbox showcase.
Very excited to play that. Genuinely, I think that looks awesome.
Bit less awesome again, Gotham Knights, 25th of October. I'm still waiting to be massively impressed by this. That feels like a lost cause
to me, mate.
I'm getting there with it. I think they put out another trailer maybe today with Robin in it, and I just was kind of like, okay, like, we're still going to do that then. Again, could be one round, but I don't imagine it being anything like as impactful as the Arkham games were, which, fair enough, really. But High on Life, which is that Justin Roiland game, which I don't know very much about at all, but yeah, the trailer we got from that at the Xbox Showcase did look really stupid and funny, and yeah, if you're into Justin Roiland stuff, you're going to be paying attention to that. Two others, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, I don't think we really need to say anything about that. It's going to be the biggest selling game of the year, isn't it?
Almost certainly, Lewis. Almost certainly.
And just a stupid throwaway one, because I can't believe it's actually got a date and it might actually happen, is Resident Evil Reverse. That long-awaited multiplayer
God. How much
game.
have they missed their window for that to be interesting, Lewis?
By a good long way. Yeah, I'm kind of including that here to say, like, will it happen? Let's see. Let's see if it just gets scrapped right before it launched, because it doesn't look any good whatsoever.
No, it doesn't.
And let's just quickly, we'll pull together November and December because there's not a lot that actually have dates for those months. We've got Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on the 18th of November. This is the Iberian set one, I think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell's going on with these games anymore. Are you ever going to go back to them, do you think?
I think Sword and Shield sort of done it for me. Like, I was playing this and I was like, oh, I don't have to be interested in this series anymore. It happened to me with Final Fantasy as well. Like, Final Fantasy just went down a road as well that I was just like, oh, I don't have to be interested in this anymore because this is no longer the game I remember being good.
Yeah.
And Pokemon, to be honest with you, have probably been doing that for a long time. It's just that I really fell away from the series and then came back with Sword and Shield. And I was just like, no, this is not for me anymore. This is not for me anymore.
Yeah. I think that's fair enough. I mean, I sort of thought if you didn't play Arceus, that was the one that seemed to be the most interesting thing.
I would actually agree. I would rather go back and play Arceus than play another Sword and Shield or like Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah, just another mainline
Exactly.
game.
I would actually rather go back and play Arceus.
And probably one of our most anticipated games of the entire year, coming December 2nd, is the Callisto Protocol.
Yes.
This looks, really fantastic. Hopefully the start of a little burst of really excellent Dead Space rip-offs, essentially. But yeah, I think this is looking great. It's from the same people that made Dead Space. All the trailers we've seen for it look fantastic so far. It's a good way to round off the year, and hopefully we'll land. That's the one thing we don't know yet, is if it's actually going to be as good as it looks thus far.
Well, it does look very, very good, and it has a team with a lot of pedigree behind it. So I have hope for this, and I really do hope that it lands. I hope that it's great. I hope that they make the release date. It looks fantastic. Like, I'm really, really excited about it. In fact, I think of all the games that we've mentioned so far, I think that is the one I'm probably most excited for.
Yeah, well, there you go. A couple of games very quickly to mention that don't have dates on them yet, but that we are expecting in the latter half of the year. Hogwarts Legacy being one. We've spent a bit of time on this before. I don't think either of us are massively excited about it, but also weren't totally let down by the gameplay that we saw of it.
I don't think that it's a game for us, Lewis. I think we can just say that plain and simple.
Yeah.
However, the game that it is way better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, deeply problematic in other ways too, which is not
great.
Yeah,
J.K. Rowling's a dick. Yeah, but looking at the game, looking at the game looks better than I thought it was going to.
Definitely does. And the other one, I suppose, the big question is God of War Ragnarok going to come?
I mean, this is the ultimate question in a lot of ways, because
when?
This is really the game that everyone's looking forward to in the second half of the year.
Yeah.
Most people are looking forward to. Certainly, I'm looking forward to in the second half of the year. I am still, I don't know, I'm a bit 50-50. I'm feeling a bit more confident now that it is going to make it this year, to be honest. If it does, I reckon it'll probably come in November-ish. Like, I reckon it'll miss all that October fray that's happening in there. Do you know what I mean? Just give it a nice clean window in November, and I think there's no reason to think that it won't be absolutely fucking awesome if it does come, Liz. Yeah, so, I mean, that is the big one. Like, is God of War going to make it? Because moving on to a question that I think you want to ask is, is the second half of the year looking any good? And I really think that whether or not God of War Ragnarok comes out this year will define whether or not this is an okay year in video games or this is a actually quite good year in video games. And it's sort of mad to say that one game could make me feel that way about the entire year, but it sort of would. It would be sort of like bookended between God of War Ragnarok and Elden Ring, and then, well, I suppose Horizon even before that as well. And I would be like, yeah, that was a good year. Like, you can't say that God of War Ragnarok, assuming that it lands in the way that we think that it will, and Elden Ring come out in the same year, and for me not to say that was a good year in video games, you know?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. If it does land, and I agree. It's probably either that November slot or kind of like late September to me. But as you pointed out, The Last of Us does complicate that slightly.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident it is going to come this year now. Just from all the noises that they themselves have made, the fact that they put out that kind of accessibility stuff, all the rumblings that they're going to do a showcase at the end of the summer would say that it's coming sooner rather than later. Who knows? I still wonder what that actually means for the game itself and like how different it might be from the first one or how much it will have developed on from there, but it doesn't need to in any great sense. But I agree, like, it's been a solid year, particularly because of Elden Ring and Horizon. There's been a handful of other major games, but nothing really, really groundbreaking other than Elden Ring, I would say, and God of War will be the other one that kind of elevates the year. It's the other big tentpole if it does land. But other than that, I mean, again, not to be down on it because there's great games. We've mentioned tons of great games. games, and there's plenty of good games and games that people will enjoy that we haven't touched on here. But it does feel like in previous years we've had a kind of slew of stuff. There's not really a huge standout indie here that we've had in most years. Like, you know, Death's Door last year was probably the one for us at least that really stood out. Sure. There hasn't, maybe, I guess Tunic earlier in the year is that, but didn't quite make the same splash perhaps. I don't know, I just feel like we're kind of lacking an absolute killer blow here, but God of War could be it. There's a bunch of other smaller games, things like Season or Open Roads from Fulbright, Little Devil Inside,
another one there, yeah.
Somerville. So there's plenty that could be coming, but without that God of War Ragnarok date pinned in, I don't know, I feel like it might be a bit of a backlog year, which is no bad thing, particularly when you've been playing one game for as long as I have at the moment, but it would, yeah, it's an opportunity maybe dip in and mop up some stuff that I hadn't got around to yet.
Yeah, I would say that like it's definitely like that October is crazy, and there's a lot of good stuff coming in October. There really is. Like there's a lot that I'm excited about coming in that October. But yeah, there's this sort of middle bit of the year, sort of between Elden Ring and that October, that feels sort of. I mean, there's a good few things coming out, but a bit sparse, we will say.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll have to call it a day there. I'd like to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really, really, really helps us out. There's a huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, that just helps us out even more. And thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You're an absolute legend to us. I'd like to remind everyone that our play-along games, as mentioned earlier on in the show, are The White Door and Sagebrush, which you can also play on your Steam Deck should you have one.
Yeah, you can indeed. Other platforms are available. I've made a start on The White Door, which I probably have played half of it now because it's only a couple hours long, but I'm enjoying it so far. It plays very like Florence, which is another game that we've talked a lot about in the past.
Big fan of Florence, man. Big fan of Florence.
Yeah, quite a different tone, I would say, to Florence. But if you enjoyed that gameplay at all, if you found any kind of enjoyment in that, I would definitely say to go for it. And if you didn't take us up on the bundle for Ukraine, which this was part of, it is available on, at least on iOS. I'm not checked about Android, but I think that would be an absolutely fine way to play this game as well. So if that suits you and you want to dive in, do that.
Yeah, I checked in our break there, and it is £2.50 on iOS. So there's no reason not to play this. No reason not to play this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week.
Thanks.